This episode is sponsored by Battlephone.com, now with new lower shipping prices.
Become a general of mighty armies at the Kings of War Hub. Take command of elves, dwarves and orcs in this game of massed fantasy combat on beastsofwar.com. From Viking halls to the cities of the future, terrain buffs will love our foreground hub. Watch gaming tables of all genres come to life at beastsofwar.com.
Good morning and welcome to the Weekender. It's time to get stuck in to some gaming.
Yeah.
We have competitions in this week's episode. Remember, you could win, we'll be mentioning a bit later on in the episode how, Beyond the Gates of Antares, Isaurian, Torga, what is it? MV...
Mark 7.
Mark 7.
Roman numerals.
I could have told you that if it had a K in there.
MVII. Well, I don't.
Also, we have a Darker Days radio competition where they're going to be recording a new episode discussing Vampire 5th Edition.
Yes.
And they're running a competition to win LARP tickets to the night in question, which is being run by Jackalope's LARP.
Yeah, now I will say, if I remember correctly, this particular LARP is being held in Texas.
I believe so.
The prize only includes your entry through the door. So you have to be able to get there, get yourself accommodation, and get your food sorted.
Yes.
It's very important to mention that.
Okay, yeah, so it's a splatterpunk horror event.
Yeah.
It's the first licensed blockbuster LARP focused on the Sabbat. You could win a single admission ticket worth $189.
Yes.
That doesn't include travel, food, lodging, fangs, cape. Blood.
Yeah, you have to provide your own fangs.
P.S. Be over 18.
And you have to be over 18. So stay tuned later in the show. We'll talk about how you can win that. Right. It's been a long time.
Oh.
Okay. I know we've all been missing Warren Meets Matt, but there's been a little thing that I've been missing.
Oh.
Even more than
Really?
Warren Meets Matt. Yeah.
Oh.
It's only time for John's 2.
Hello everyone, we're going to be checking out a little something from Green Stuff World in this segment, and this is Green Stuff World's Spider Serum. This is for creating blankets of spider web and all that really nice spooky looking stuff. Will work great if you're working with some Lord of the Rings stuff, but I'm going to be using it on a little house that I have over here. So you get 2 bottles. You get the actual serum itself, which you can put through an airbrush. Well, you should put through an airbrush. And then you also get the cleaner as well, because this stuff is actually sort of a plastic filament. It smells a little like Revel Contactor glue. So I imagine it's something that's a lot thinner, but still has that sort of plastic-esque element to it, a liquid plastic of some sort. And when it comes out of the airbrush, it dries very, very quickly and becomes really stringy and stuff, a bit like Revel Contactor. And it will stick to all this stuff, and when it hardens, it's a little bit like a plastic filament. So you can actually go in with a brush or a toothpick or something and just take bits out if you've overdone it. This is messy. We've been chatting back and forth with Green Stuff World, and they will say that this is a little messy. So ideally you want to be using this in a spray booth. If you don't have a spray booth, a room that doesn't have a lot of stuff that you want covered in spiderweb, because it will get everywhere. So spray into a box or spray, as I said, in a spray booth. If you're unable to do that, potentially try and spray out through a window or even outside if it's a good day or you happen to have something like a gazebo that's well sheltered. So yeah, let's give this stuff a go and let's see how we create some spider webs. So I have some of the Spider Serum in the cup of my airbrush. It doesn't require any thinning, and we're just going to start applying it. The trick is to find an area that's suitable, and when you start spraying it, make sure that the pressure on the airbrush isn't too high. If it's too high, the fluid will come out and not dry in the air before it hits anything. And as you can see, you get a fairly good result pretty quickly as well, and if there's any excess, you can remove that with a brush or a cocktail stick. and we can see that we can make this nice sort of almost a carpet of cobwebs that covers gaps and stuff, and it looks really effective. So that's it. That's Green Stuff World's Spider Serum. Hopefully you find this one useful. Thank you for watching, and we'll get back to the Weekender.
What that man can do with his Spider Serum, eh?
That's an interesting piece of material to work with.
Yes. Now, it smells like plastic glue.
I don't mind that scent.
Yeah, it does smell like plastic glue.
I have no sense of smell. I'm good.
We've had a little play with it before John whipped it out during John's tool.
Yeah.
And it does go everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it needs a certain amount of control, but it is fun. It is fun. And if the more you kind of play with it, so if you shoot it from further back, you get a bigger
Coverage
of it.
But does it have good range?
Yes, but you also have to reduce the pressure as well.
Keep it together, Ben. Keep it together there.
Come on, guys. Come on now. This is family show. So, but if you increase the pressure, I think you can shoot it from further back, and you get a bigger spread of a web. Come on, Ben.
Yes, you know. Come on,
dude. Come on, man. It's like, anyway,
if you lower the pressure, how close can you get to actually start covering
you
stuff?
can go right in. You can go right in. Right in. And anything,
we've lost him. We've lost Ben.
And
he's gone.
Man down.
And any bits that you don't want, you can clean it off with a cotton bud.
Right. Does it take long to set? Is it?
He's broken. We need a new Ben.
Oh, this show is so hard to do sometimes. Okay.
Well,
anyway,
Ben.exe has failed to load. Please contact your local service administrator.
Yeah. So if you would like to get some Spider Serum of your own, head across. Check
out the guys at Green Stuff World.
Green Stuff World. Yes. We got a letter. There's a Kickstarter, right? And it's on at the moment. This is by Lodestone, okay? Hi, all of Beasts of War. That's you guys as well. So they're talking to all of us. We're a very new company, the Lodestone. At least we're hoping to be. We're throwing ourselves into the Kickstarter arena in April. And they were at Salute, I believe, as well on the 14th past.
Ah, okay.
So this is Nick, Colin, and Rich, and they've been wargamers and board gamers for a long time, and they've come up with something a little bit different. So they've sent it over to us to have a little play with,
yes,
just to see. So it's a MDF, HDF. Building kit,
yes,
but it's a little bit different in that it's all modular. So
it's not a kit.
It's not a kit per se.
No glue required.
Everything you see is exactly as it comes. Okay.
So hang on, I pledge on the Kickstarter and I get that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. But what you actually get is these.
Ah.
Okay. So they all come exactly as you see, all pre-made and pre-magnetized. Okay. And then if I strip this one down to the bare bones, you'll see what way it works. So the stairs are a component.
Okay.
They just pop off. The roof is a component that just pops off. The sides are components that just pop off, like so. And then that gets you down to your bare bones box.
Magnets, man. How do they work?
So if we've taken that stuff off, watch what we can do now. So if we take this, just this part of the box on its own, it had previously been connected, I think, to that. All right.
Yeah.
If we take that box on its own, we can take the stuff that we had previously and go pop. Let me just see.
Other side.
Pop. Pop.
Ah, I see. The door's upside down.
Oh, sorry, that would explain that.
Other side.
So, there, and there.
Oh, that's clever.
And then there, and there. And then you have
really
another
cool
little house. Now, they're talking about doing different kinds of skins and stuff for it. Some of the nice, interesting bits are, let me zoom in a little bit. So on this camera here, you can see that they have this kind of nice texture.
Yeah.
Now, it's a little bit sparkly for me, but I'm told that that sparkle is not unusual. Actually, it was Mr. Justin here that told me that sparkle is not unusual.
Yeah, whenever you're doing like a scree dash on the side of a wall, like a white stone house.
Yeah.
So you put your plaster down and then you're literally just chucking spadefuls of stone at it and it sticks to it. You do get some of them that are quite sparkly.
No, so that glittery effect.
It's not unrealistic.
Personally, if I was feeding back, I like the texture of what's in there because it's got a nice texture.
Yeah.
I would maybe have said to the guys to maybe put a primed color or something over it because the I don't know. There's just something about the sparkle. You maybe can or cannot see that on camera, but something about the sparkle threw me a little bit. But Justin, equally, as he says, it's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, like for me, this looks more like a wattle and daub, so I'd prefer to see like a nice flat white in there.
Yeah,
And maybe a darkening on the
whitewash.
actual
the roof
timbers.
is beautiful.
Yeah,
the roof
that
is
is
beautiful.
superb.
So again, it's all solid. Lots and lots of little bits that have all been put together. It comes together. The texture is just wonderful.
I love the ramshackleness of it, where you have a
yeah.
few tiles that are just hanging out of place or have random little cracks in them.
Yeah, so we thought when we saw it, we thought that's interesting. You might be interested in that. So their Kickstarter has got another few days to go. Otherwise, if you check out the lodestone.co.uk, so there's the Kickstarter there.
Let's see, what else have they got happening here?
So there's one. Some bigger buildings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
it all scales up,
So sort of,
and then you start to get into some of the more sci-fi designs.
It's kind of clever that you might be able to use them for actually storing some miniatures in there.
yeah,
too.
dice
Yeah.
boxes.
Ooh, those I like.
Isn't that interesting?
That's very nice. And that's
team?
the people.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Yeah, this is what I was saying. If you get some of them like this, actually store some gaming bits inside.
yeah. Well,
And then, dungeon one.
yeah, isn't that very
That's
interesting?
a nice idea.
This was one of the things I was going to also suggest to the guys is that in today's market, a lot of the war games they have pretty high resolution. In other words, the action and the combat can go quite close. So one of the things that I was going to suggest to the fellas was leave them open for interiors, which I believe maybe it already has. Let me just check.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, it does.
So if we go like that, yeah, then in that case, it's job done, guys. It's job done. And if you have interior inserts that you can then put into that as well to give you your kind of stone floors and stuff, I think that's very, very cool.
It's a great piece of very modular terrain done in a way I haven't really seen before.
What I like about it is, you're basically now, the only thing of any significant volume that you're storing is that, okay? So you're storing your boxy bits, but everything else is all just flat, and you can just put it into bags, put the bags into boxes, and store it all away. And then whenever you want, you just clip it all together, and just it's seconds puts it together.
Yeah.
So really, really interesting that. So like I said, check out the lodestone.co.uk or check out the Kickstarter. It'll be in the show notes. Right. Next up, we have a guest. Justin, you're going to sit down with the guys from Warlord.
Yeah, basically, it's time to catch up on what the latest and greatest things from the Gates of Antares has been. So we're having a look at some of the new vehicles and to talk about some of the units that are coming out in the future, and maybe just a sneaky little thing about something else coming soon.
Twisted aliens and demented cultists battle across the devastating science fiction world of Dark Age. Muster your forces and learn to survive at beastsofwar.com. A world of hideous nightmares awaits in Kingdom Death Monster. Fight to survive or fade into darkness at the Kingdom Death Hub at beastsofwar.com.
Hi everybody, I am back with Rich from Warlord Games, and today we are talking Beyond the Gates of Antares for the latest and greatest.
Absolutely.
Lots of shiny stuff.
Lots and lots of shiny stuff.
Lots of big stuff.
Lots of big stuff. And I think the reason I wanted to bring these today is I don't think people have realised exactly how much big stuff there is. I like my tanks in World War II and Antares. We've now got a lot of tanks to choose from.
Lots of hover tanks.
Hover tanks, yes, yeah. Now I brought what I could from the studio. So again, the studio figures, we know what they're like.
Yeah.
Some are in action in photo shoots for the next supplement, so I couldn't bring everything. But it's a good selection of some of the latest ones.
Yeah.
Shall we start with the biggest and work our way down?
Yeah. Which one would technically be the biggest?
Well, this one
Okay, for the Concorde.
for the Concorde.
Okay. So say hello to this. What is this? It's got 3 grav motors.
Yep.
Is this a turret?
Yes,
or...
it's a turn. You can turn it. Yeah, it's a plasma.
Oh my god! I actually thought this was a fixed weapon, but
No, it's a turret that turns, and you've got a turret on top as well.
yeah, just
for close
little
support.
pop gun.
Close support plasma.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what is this thing called?
So this is the C3 M25 combat heavy drone.
Right.
Yeah, it's our first Mod 3 tank. Now, for those of you who don't know,
Excuse me?
yeah, Mod 3, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Gates of Antares operates a system similar to the bolt action, where we use order dice
Yeah.
out of the bag to activate our units.
Yep.
So if I pass you those,
Yeah.
you can put those on the camera and see.
Yeah. So
see a bit more.
in bolt action,
Mm-hmm.
a unit. Let's bring a unit in. So in bolt action, a unit gets a dice in the back.
Yeah, and you would place that as fire
Yeah.
order, so it can basically gain that bonus in shooting.
Yeah.
Or you might want to advance with it.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of a drone that's moving and potentially shooting as well.
If something's gone wrong, you might want to rally.
Yeah, a repairing
Yep.
type thing in the case of a drone.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The difference with Antares is that some of the vehicles gain extra order dice,
Yeah.
which allows them a second option to move or give an order.
Yeah, so what we've seen so far with Mod 2, which we've put.
But so the
a
rest of the
second
vehicles
in
we've
the
got
bag.
today are Mod 2, but this is the very first one that gets a third dice.
For a big gun, I'm gonna say it makes it very versatile on the tabletop and worthwhile.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing is it horrendously expensive points wise?
It's a fair few points.
Okay.
You're getting into the realm of playing Battle Force size games, so we're looking
Right.
at 1,250 points.
Uh-huh.
We've been working out a couple of forces where we might want to take it, and we'll come on to a drone commander in a minute. But
Okay.
because the Concorde, the C3, they're very much based around the machine, an intel machine that basically tells them how they're going to live,
Yeah.
and they're quite happy with that in their society. And the units that go out and combat often aren't allowed then to reconnect with the normal home planets, if you like,
Yeah.
because who knows what they've come into contact with other intelligent races, other machine intelligences, where they could be infected and bring a computer virus back.
Yeah.
So basically, the forces that are dedicated to going out exploring and fighting enemies or taking over conquest, taking over new territories,
They're firewalled off.
they're firewalled off. So something like the C3 drone is the typical. The M25 drone is the typical heavy hitter. It's the bombard. It's floating in at the back, take out the enemy positions, force the enemy to vacate so they can move in, and it comes with a variety of weapons. The one you've got there obviously is the plasma, but we also have a slightly variant turret.
If I pop this off and pop
Six back a bit, there
on.
you go.
If I can find
It's a bit further back than you think. There you go.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and of course you can magnet on that one. So
Yeah, and then the little turret goes on top.
Pop. We magnetise these. It makes it easier.
Yeah.
And that's the compression.
Okay. So you've got good weapon options. You've got a big heavy machine. Is it heavily armored?
It's fairly heavy armoured. So yeah, you're talking about needing something big like a heavy mag cannon, which has that kinetic energy and gives massive damage.
Right.
So it gives you an extra dice on the damage tables when you come to take out drones. That's what you're after to take this beast out.
So if you're in the arms race with your buddies playing Gates of Antares, maybe grab one of these when they come out. Or is this out already?
It's currently on pre-order.
Pre-order, okay.
Yeah. So depending on when we see this video,
at time of filming, on pre-order.
At time of filming, on pre-order.
Okay.
The very end of this month.
I see.
Beginning of April. That's when it hits the shelves in the stores.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you're heading to Salute, or if you've maybe already been to Salute, you may have grabbed one of these.
Yeah.
Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, wrong video.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I think we'll keep with the C3 because they've got a variety of other drones. So
well, this one looks a little bit fat.
Well, that's a modification of our standard C3 M4 combat drone, and the belly of this one allows for transport, so it becomes the T7 version.
I see.
And that can take a squad of troops up to 10 men, effectively.
It's
As with anything, like the old original Rhino, you can't fit 10 Space Marines in it. Well, in this case, it's exactly the same. You're taking the inspiration that this is your transport.
Yeah.
It can take squads of 10 guys into combat. It's a great way of manoeuvring around and giving them fire support at the same time.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at most regular APCs and stuff, you don't think you would fit a full squad of guys in those. They are pretty much cheek by jowl.
Yeah, you squeeze in, tell you. Yeah. So when you've got a bunch of Marines in the back of one of those things with all your kit, there's not a lot of room to breathe.
Have you seen the size of some American Marines?
The American Marines, I was the Royal Marines, come on. Anyway, so there's another variant.
Yes.
Like most armies, we like the gunships.
Yeah.
They come fully kitted out with plenty of weaponry to suppress the enemy.
Yeah, is that this?
That's where this one comes in.
Okay.
And that's a close support version, so it becomes the M407.
Okay. Well, I heard you like turrets, so we put turrets on your turrets.
Yes, so what that basically allows you to do is get as many options as possible onto the battlefield and cover your 360 arcs quite happily.
And then, are these?
Yeah, they're part and parcel of the close support weapons as well.
Okay, I'm not going to try and move that just in case I break something.
I think they do move on that one because you've got the forward jets also move because it's a plastic kit. So you've got those forward thrusters to help with that.
It's really cool. So you've got plasma on the front.
Yeah.
And twin plasmas up top, I believe.
Light support twin. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very cool.
It's throwing out a lot of dice. Now, of course, these other vehicles, they're slightly smaller, so they're mod 2. So you can easily hold your ground once you get into position and just, hunker down, lay out to people. Obviously, being bigger vehicles, they're not going to get to hide. So you're not certainly hiding behind any terrain unless it's completely line of sight blocking.
It's one addition to Antares that I really liked for the actual game system that you guys have. Having that mod on vehicles. There are times whenever I've played bolt action and I've had, say, my Panther or something, I've rolled it up into position, I've taken the shot, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there wishing, I wish I could move you again this turn. Yeah, but you can't.
It's a bit like the recon vehicles. You react and then you think, okay, I've had to spend my dice. So
yeah. But I mean, like in Antares, it makes a lot of sense because they're super sci-fi vehicles. They would have really high technology, really high reaction times. Onboard computing systems, stuff like that. In a World War II tank, not so much.
No. Okay, and that brings us on to perhaps this little dude. Now, he's a bit smaller than the rest.
Yeah, but he's cute.
But one thing about Antares which I love is the fact that you can have complete drone forces, so you don't need to bring any troops onto the table. This particular chap is a drone commander. So he would be compacted along with the other things in whatever starship they're using to get to their location. You might have your standard C3 troops available, and the tactical decision of a commander at that point is to, rather than expend his men, is to send the drone commander out, who can then look after up to 5 other drones potentially, with spreading out, because he has little mini support buddy drones, if you like, that can shard with him, and they, as a group, can then spread his order range out from his normal order span. Then becomes that 5 times over. So he could spread out this line of little buddy drones, and his influence of orders can reach much further out.
Yeah, so it's kind of like how the spotter drones work then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, in a similar way.
Yeah.
Which allows you basically to have your force spread out, and with one order, everybody does that same order. So potentially you could use all your dice in one hit.
That could be vicious.
Yeah. It could really be a turn changer if you get set up for the right moment.
Well, if you have that one target that absolutely has to die before it activates.
Absolutely. So one of the things we wanted to do with the big drone is see just what's the smallest size force you could perhaps put together. And the great thing about the last supplement was that it introduced pure drone forces and specialist forces. So you have the opportunity to, where each of these tends to be in a specialist role, you're allowed to take those as more generic troop types. Not necessarily the troop choices, but bring it up a level to support rather than strategic. So that effectively allows you to field this big drone with the drone commander and a load of the heavy support drones. So not quite these beasties, but they're drones on their own. They have like the heavy support weapons. So you could have potentially 8 of those with this big beast, all kitted up with, say, fractal cannons. Compression cannons will be a favourite for a lot of people. Because they're the type of weapon to take out big buildings and vehicles. And all your plasma for support and taking out just general infantry and drones.
Yeah, so basically, if you know something's coming in on a transmat, surround it with this, and as soon as they pour in...
Yeah, you got that potential to really. But also, I think people will want to explore it a little bit further as we investigate Antares, which is, of course, the star. The gates, if it collapses, the gates get drawn in. And there's situations where it's not just across solar systems or galaxies that you're potentially travelling. It's time as well. So well, obviously there's a few top secret bits here. However, it's races that might have existed in the past that have disappeared might be able to come through those gates if they've got access to that type of technology and actually come across the Concord or the Concord across them. And it's how the expansions work, and it's also how right at the very beginning the Isaurian basic group, which were the originals, ended up splitting and becoming the Concord C3 and the Isaurians, and hence the technology divergence where they can't reconnect their nanite technology. Yes.
Right. Next race?
Next race. Quickly, let's have a look at the Algrin, because they're the force that I use.
The one that I like the best, because I love the design they have.
The ones that are already out, of course, are the Liberator, and this is out as well. It's the Defiant. And again, it's a mod 2, so it comes with 2 dice, and it's the transport variation.
It's got a really hard-edged design to it, which is what I really love about these guys.
We've got a fantastic 3D designer now on board called Marco. He's taken the original designs. He's doing a lot of work to bring in a lot more detail. I think our original plan with the Liberator was to go into plastic, but unfortunately that didn't come to fruition. So he's done a Mark II, which we might see towards later on this year. We'll see. But that's the Defiant, and of course we've got the Bastion coming very, very soon, which will be the second Mod 3. And it's a humongous mag cannon carrying beast.
I remember the first look through the book I had. I think I actually sat down with you doing it.
Yes, we had to look at the blueprints, didn't we?
Looking at the blueprints and actually saying, wait, how big is this thing? And you were just sat there going, you'll see.
You'll see. It's actually a bit bigger than the M25.
Wow.
The ones I've seen so far in the studio.
Wow. Nice.
Yes. In fact, obviously the M25 we'd love to be bigger. But I think it looks absolutely stunning already.
I mean, like everything... One thing that you always have to be careful of whenever you're designing alien human races, is how I'm going to describe it, is keeping their feel, their flavour and theme. And you guys have done a fantastic job of keeping those key, what I would call iconic components. So like on the gravity generators for all of the Concorde stuff, you can tell that the technology matches and feels as if it's been done by the same design
And
team.
of course the Algrin have got that definite, more militaristic theme. They shun the computer technology to a degree because they know that they can shut it down. More importantly, they fight the Gar race quite a lot. That's their principal antagonist. And the Gar have ancient technology, nuclear weaponry, basically, which can wipe out the technology, the MP, that type of thing. So they're often in that situation where they can't use technology per se, and they rely on standard mag weaponry, which is your magnetic rail sort of rifle type stuff.
Which I've actually seen some videos recently of experiments being done, and it is scary.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and we didn't mention it perhaps in Conflict 47. That's something that's going to be appearing in Conflicts as well at some point.
Weapons.
But I shouldn't perhaps say that yet. Right, unless you've seen the other video, in which case watch Weekenders or else. Gar. Now, of course, they're the principal antagonists. People would see these guys already. Now, these are two characters that are out, and I thought they're well worth showing off again. Because we're getting a few more models for these guys in a very soon, actually, if not already.
I love the glow effects.
Now, these are actually Rebel Gar. And we talked before, didn't we, about Karg and the Gar Empire, and their bio-hatched in their hatcheries on their prime homeworld. And depending on what hatchery you're in, depends on where you are in society. Now, of course, when you make a mistake, and Gar just aren't forgiving, you make a mistake, you're then either exiled or booted out,
Yeah.
and you become outcast. Now, the outcasts themselves put up with that lot. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And they were bred at some point to become perhaps humanity's sort of warriors going forwards into space. But of course, they're trapped in that ethos now. They hate everybody. Their mindset to take over and basically expand, taking out everybody.
Yep.
But Karg has got some ulterior motives. We haven't seen what those are yet. And one of the guys that was exiled for making a mistake was one of his top commanders in the same breeding group as Karg.
So which one here?
And that's Partok, one with the wiggly arms.
Here?
That's him. He's the commander for Partok. Now, here we see him in his satchel battle suit.
Yes.
We've seen him perhaps in the past out of his suit.
Yeah.
And of course, the rebels, led by Partok, still believe in the Gar ethos, but they know that something's wrong with Karg, and they want to fight to take over again and bring Gar society back to the direction it should be going, not in this new direction that Karg is taking them. So you have, in the new book, perhaps, you've got 3 factions now. You've got exiles, where Gar have become outcasts, and rather than and they've left, a bit like the rebels, but they still believe in what Karg's doing. They've just been booted out, so they're now exiles, whereas these guys are rebels, and these are some of the first new figures coming through for the rebel army.
Lovely. We just clear stuff. I love it.
And of course, rebels will try and take and use whatever they can find. So they have Gar wreckers and walkers. You notice that the walker we had a quick look at looks very reminiscent of various Algrin equipment and Gar equipment combined, and that's very much what they'll do. These guys are Blackguard. They'll be Bartok's supporters and potentially bodyguard, and these are a new unit coming soon.
I love the different poses that you've picked out for these guys. So you've got some at the ready, but you have I just put this little fella down. This little guy is reloading his weapon.
Yep.
So I have catching little moments like that, although what this guy's doing, I have no idea.
Challenging someone, perhaps. Or perhaps his gun's just not very good. Well, they aren't.
The quartermaster, give me a broken one!
Much easier to hit somebody with it than shoot with it.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a really nice feel to them. They feel very different to the standard Gar.
Yeah, they've got to be careful because they're effectively are outcasts. They haven't got access to the technology anymore. They've had to do stuff like scavenge for anything they can use, and therefore they've had to touch technology that they wouldn't normally do as Gar. So they've had to change their ethos a little bit, so that they can utilize Algrin technology or whoever's they've grabbed, and obviously convert it in their own way, as you saw with the walker at the front there.
Well, it's one thing we're seeing a little bit is whenever these societies act in isolation, some of them really want to stay within acting in isolation, and this is going to be an interesting one because they're starting to intermingle with other races. Yeah, they're starting to intermingle, but they are doing it with a purpose behind it from their point of view. It's all about getting back and taking over, getting rid of Karg. They can get rid of Karg. That's what they're after, and they'll ambush him. They're very much the guys. They'll sit at the background. They don't care what everybody else is doing. They're all about, this is our mission.
Our mission is to get Karg. So they'll do raids on these transport ships to get equipment for themselves. But equally, they'll be opportunistic if there's a battle going on between the Algrin and, say, the Concord, or the Algrin and the Isaurians. Equipment after the battle will be scavenged.
Oh look, everybody left their dead behind. Okay.
Let's grab what we can. And they sometimes obviously get caught out and get into the mix as well. So depending on what Fartok's after. And that probably leads us on to the main race, which we're going to see a lot more of as we go through.
Isorans. This I actually had a recent look at in unboxing.
Yes.
So this, what is this?
This is your Maran Vesh MV5 combat drone. And probably one of my favourites in the entire range.
Yeah, well, it's the Isorans have a very different, the most alien of all designs, I would say, just because there's such a mix of fluidity with the technology that they have.
They're fast. They can move through with the phase shifting, allow them to move through oncoming rounds, incoming fire. They can avoid.
And this one's rocking out with a couple of heavy plasmas.
With the heavy plasmas, but we also have a couple of other turrets.
Yes.
So if you want to, that's magnetised. So if you want to pop
Pop
up,
that off.
there's 2 turrets actually. The very top gun is also a magnetised.
Yeah, so we've got this.
Fractal.
And then if I pop this back on.
So you've got your fractal cannon.
Yeah. I love
That's
the
cool.
miniatures that are designed like this, where you can just quickly swap
Yeah.
out your weapon loadouts.
Yeah.
Because it leaves you really free to play the game as you wish.
Yeah, and it's quite easy to pop a few magnets into the stems on those if you wanted to. And that's your compression cannon. So I think a lot of people with vehicles are tending towards the compression at the moment.
Does that seem to be the trend within the meta?
Yeah, it's a good weapon to take on the bigger stuff. It's certainly one that you can get a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Pins, if anything else, is what we're after, to knock out a unit, pile on those pins. And of course, that leaves us with finally our Togra MV2. And of course, we've looked at transport, and this is the transport variants.
I see.
For the Isaurians again, taking into combat.
I can actually see what has been done. So you've got the same base chassis as the last vehicle,
Exactly
with then the big
same.
transport pod on top.
Exactly the same, yeah.
And
It's
this
awesome.
looks so alien. So alien.
Now, of course, the paint job on this, I think, is pretty subtle, and it's very hard to see it under camera. But there's a slight pearlescent. There's sort of almost animalistic, skinned, leathery sort of feel. Perhaps
doing this, just letting the light shine over it, you can see just as you turn, the way the light hits it to actually get that really, really nice effect.
So this is 2 painters working on it. You've got Derek using some airbrush work, and then you've also got Andreas doing a bit of work on the detailing.
Nice. And the Isaurian stuff, it does have like an old feel to it, if that makes sense. It feels like older tech that has been created for a long time and now is going to war.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that, and I really think that fits quite well with the Isaurian race as a whole, because they are the, if you like, the originating species, the original ones who, as a race, were expanding before the gates collapsed, and that's obviously where we're picking it up from in the 7th Age, and you've got a lot of combat going on between races that diverged, where Boromites were mining clans working for these guys. They're now their own secretive society, clan-based matriarchal society. You've got the Freeborn, who've basically diverged and become the traders, the rogue traders out in the world. Obviously, the word on purpose there. And again, with those, we'll be seeing some excellent little characters coming along. Tim Bancroft, Rick Priestley, they've been working on the next supplement, and you'll see a lot more of the traders going out and about with Bodyguard. We're doing some dodgy deals with Gar, trying to do a few bits and pieces like that. And of course, as any good trader would do, stumble across something alien and cause mayhem in the rest of the universe. Not on purpose,
as you do,
but accidentally. Oh, what's this ship? We'll go and investigate.
Oh, what's this button do?
Because ultimately, everybody's after the technology, and because the gates open and close, that potentially leads them on to new exploration of new systems that have never been seen before, potentially build a technology that they've never found before, and that could be a huge resource for their own civilizations, or to counter other civilizations, or as in the Freeborn's case, a trading commodity that can expand their races, their home bases that are spread out across the universe. So where Isaurian won't touch base with C3 because they're kind of on either side of the Antares, the Freeborn will connect with both.
And you'll have a little bit of interplay between.
Absolutely, and that's how some of the guys, like the mercenary clans that work for the Freeborn, quite often will appear. Huck and a few others that we've seen already. There's loads of scope for more aliens with the Sanra, of course. Sanra, some of them have been converted by the Isaurians to become part of them. But they were only a small group from a small planet within the San determinate, and there's huge potential to go there and see a whole Sanra force. But they're not the aliens that are coming in the book. So, and I can't really say anything more.
Okay.
However, the spaceship that's come through has come through from another point in time.
I see. Well, I think we can wrap it up safely there.
Yeah.
Everybody's appetite should be well and truly whetted there. So,
See you at Salute and find out more.
or maybe if you were already at Salute, depending on this video goes out. Again, we're playing with time in Antares, we're playing with time in the videos, so I may have my beard whenever you see me at Salute.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, tell you what, if you're excited for what's coming for Beyond the Gates of Antares, drop your comments in below. I'm sure Rich would love to hear from you and probably be pestered saying, what's coming
next? I want to see colour schemes for those.
Okay.
Those are Saurians, because whilst I've been here, I've been seeing some lovely paints.
Okay.
Very pearlescent.
Yes.
So I'm sure you'll be talking about those.
Yes, we have some tutorials for those.
And I think they work really well on those.
Yeah. All right, well, everybody, get those comments in below. Rich has challenged you to show off some of your Antares colour schemes. We'll move on. We'll see you again soon.
Take care.
Always nice to chat to the guys at Warlord. Always nice to see Gates of Antares expanding further and further with new stuff coming in.
Yeah, loads of stuff on the horizon for that, and I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying just the whole sci-fi setting that they've constructed around it. Right, Ben, it's that time, man. It's time for your show. Time to tell me what the hell's going on in the world. It's time for Ben's news.
Yeah, sure. So we're kicking things off with something that is just so cute and so awesome. This is by the guys at Punga Miniatures, who you may remember did a Maori fantasy football team not long ago on Kickstarter, or it might have been through Indiegogo, one of the two.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is their new range called Battle Doge, which is also a range of what are they called? Canitors?
Yeah.
Canitors. Yeah.
Canine
So these are
I don't know.
these
It
are
looks like a
awesome
greyhound
four-legged
centaur.
dog warriors, and they are looking absolutely awesome.
They are wonderful. I absolutely adore the sculpts that are coming out for this range.
Have we any more pictures, Justin, to see on that?
Yeah,
I
there's
love
more.
that.
There's some of the other little lads.
Look at the wee chihuahua. There's a wee chihuahua centaur.
I like the little goatee.
So yeah, the Greyhound is the newest model that's come out for this, but they've also been doing the other ones that you can see there, and they have just gone for this amazing fantasy style to all them, as you can see, and they've got loads of breeds to work on and try things out with as well. So I'm really looking to see how this expands. They're all available, I think, via their Etsy store at the moment. So if you want to go and check them out, there's links and stuff in the description below. But yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to like rock around with that massive bulldog guy there, that bruiser dude? He looks very awesome indeed.
Yeah.
And yeah, some awesome models from these guys with loads and loads of character packed into them.
I thought the chihuahua was normal, and then I saw the one extra foot peeking out from behind.
No, that's a centaur. They're all centaurs.
Yeah.
Well, not centaur, but you know.
Yeah. What do they call them?
Canitors.
Canitors.
Yeah.
I absolutely love these.
Very odd design.
That Greyhound is brilliant.
They're working with an artist. If you go down, what's the name on the? I can't really read it from here. Can you bring it up on the screen again?
Where? Oh,
yeah, bring it up on the screen, please. Yeah. Nikita Orlov. They're working with Nikita Orlov to come up with these designs.
Yeah.
And the miniatures do seem to range quite a lot in terms of scale.
Yeah.
Like Doberman is huge. I can't remember exactly what the scale was.
Yeah.
Whereas the Chihuahua and the Corgi are very small.
Yeah.
I was looking at the comments. Raman commented he's planning on picking himself up a Corgi.
Yeah.
So,
well, he has a Corgi.
Yeah, of course. And someone else commented, right, well, that's Sam, Justin, and Warren done. We need the rest of the crew now.
Whoa. Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Who is who in this lineup?
Well, clearly the Chihuahua is Sam.
I claim the Doge. I claim the Corgi.
Yeah, that's Sam.
So Sam the Corgi.
Yeah, that's none.
No.
That must be me.
Yeah.
That must be me. And
That wouldn't be me, would it?
No, I think you're his right bollock.
And this one's female.
Do you know what? No, I think that would be closer looking to you, Justin. There, yeah, that tall elegance that you have. And the face.
I'm sorry, I have two left feet.
Yes, but when you're standing
you can have
still,
4.
Yeah, when you're standing still, no, you would have 4. It's when you're standing still, and look, let's recreate the pose, okay? Let me get you on camera. Right?
What?
Okay, yeah, this camera here. Right, camera 2. Yeah, look at that elegance. Honestly,
Who's a good boy? Are you a good boy?
No,
Who's a good boy?
hold it, because there's an incredible optical illusion going on here. Because if you look at him and squint your eyes, it's almost as if there's something going on in his head. I love that release. I love that. What's next,
cool.
Ben?
So next up is one that Sam might know a little bit more about, but this is Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition coming back thanks to White Wolf and a working relationship with Modifius, although Free League Publishing are also getting involved in this, so they're the guys between Tales of the Loop. They're doing all the layouts and designs for the books as well. So yeah, this is a return of Vampire the Masquerade with the 5th edition. Modifius have got the pre-orders going up today over on their website. They're going to be doing a new core book as well as 2 source books already. So there's the Anarch source book and the Camarilla source book. They're also going to be doing a set of official dice. There's also going to be a storyteller scream and a notebook as well, which is pretty cool. And then the other big bit of information that came out of this as well is that White Wolf are going full in on vampires, and they're going to be doing a remake of Vampire the Eternal Struggle, which was a very, very popular collectible card game back in the day. So that's going to be coming back from another company called Black Chantry Productions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you like White Wolf and you like vampires, there's loads of stuff coming out for these guys at the moment.
Well, I like White Wolf and I like vampires, so I'm very excited for all of this. We've been hearing bits and pieces about Vampire 5th for a while now. Those people who've been playtesting have had some very positive things to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited to see this return to the classic World of Darkness.
Yes.
And especially with how White Wolf are trying to go, I think they're trying to go a new direction with the setting and really reinvigorate it and focus on, with the card game as well, they're focusing on creating this setting that can be explored through lots of different media and games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there's also been rumours of another TV show floating around at some point.
No, wait, because there's a ton.
There's been a TV show.
There's a ton of things I want to pick up with you on here. Okay,
Yeah.
so firstly, was there previously a TV show?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. I've never watched
I
it,
just
so
hope
I
it
can't.
wasn't Vampire Diaries.
No.
Ben, any possibility to
I
find
don't,
out
I
the
don't
name
remember
of
the
it?
name of it myself, but I know that there was the video PC game as well for
Oh,
Vampire the
yeah,
Masquerade.
there were a couple of those. There was
Okay.
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was the second of those, and it is a superb role-playing game.
Okay, no, taking you back even further, you talked about them returning to the original world.
Yeah, the original classic World of Darkness.
No, okay, so can you describe what that world was, what that world became?
Yeah.
So we can
Now,
get
I'm
a
not
better handle on
100% on the lore because I would basically, when I run a game, I pick and choose rather than
that.
sticking.
Yeah. Oh, it's
to
only the
canon.
basics. It's only
Yeah,
the basics,
but
just as we get a
basi-
slight understanding. Yeah.
Basically, it is dark urban fantasy.
So
It's-
I assume there are vampires.
well done, you're learning. It's gothic punk.
Yes.
Is the main focus of it, and it came up. This all cropped up during the 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
That culturally now the world has moved on quite far from where the aesthetic of Vampire the Masquerade,
Yes.
which you can definitely see was a trend with things like the Matrix and stuff at the time, and the Underworld movies. It's very much that sort of.
So is Vampire the
So-
Masquerade, was it set in, it wasn't set in Bram Stoker, Dracula time?
Well,
then?
you could play Vampire the Dark Ages, and there was Vampire the Victorians era.
Uh-huh.
But no, Vampire the Masquerade was set in modern day.
Okay.
It's modern day urban fantasy.
Okay, so
And that's what it's kind of returning
Yes,
to.
yes.
Yeah,
Now, our
'cause there
modern,
was
yeah.
there was a big shift because there was the old World of Darkness, which is what Sam's talking about here, which is Vampire the Masquerade, and that's where Werewolf the Apocalypse was set as well. But then they went through a change, and it was turned into the new World of Darkness,
Yeah.
where they took a lot of the same themes and ideas from that world, but then renamed a lot of stuff, rewrote the background and the lore, and changed things mechanically as well.
Yeah.
Which was fine, and they were good fun, but this is going back to that sort of old style of play. So
Now, the new World of Darkness got rebranded a while back as the Chronicles of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you have Vampire the Requiem.
Yep.
And
Werewolf the Forsaken. I
Werewolf
believe.
the Forsaken, yes. Mage the Awakening, I think. I can't quite remember. But it's
Yeah, that's
now
the
these,
mage one. Yeah.
these two separate.
When are we going to get to play Justin the Utterly Perplexed?
Right now, I think.
I feel the brain overheating. It's just like, how many different roleplays can there be within one roleplay?
Oh, well, within World of Darkness, let's see. Demon the Fallen, Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire the Dark Ages, Werewolf the was it Awakening or Ascension for
Mage the Awakening, and then Mage the Ascension was the second.
Justin,
then
what are we going to do?
Orpheus,
Hunter the Reckoning.
Hunter the Reckoning.
Right, okay, enough.
So, quick question: this new one that's being brought out, does it just go back to bare basics?
It's still in that setting. It's still Vampire 5th edition. Now, back when they stopped making Classic World of Darkness, they did Gehenna. The whole world ended. It was the apocalypse.
Okay.
So now I take it they're rebooting. It's that didn't happen. Maybe
so
they'll
the
continue
vampire
it.
From Vampire the Orifice is going to wake up in the shower, and everything that had went before never happened.
Somewhere Chris Handley is crying.
Yeah.
When I heard the apocalypse, I was just thinking, okay, so now we're going to do Vampire the Post-Apocalypse.
Vampire the Post-Apocalypse, yes. Okay, right.
It's Modifius. They have the license for Fallout, don't they? Maybe we can see it.
How about we move on to a piece of news that we all know something about? It's time for some Romans.
Okay.
Ben, Gangs of Rome.
Yeah, so Gangs of Rome has been out for a little while now, obviously, but this is just a look back quickly at this piece of news that came out that we put out last week, which was about Blood on the Aventine, which is the starter set for you to get stuck into Gangs of Rome. It's all based around the idea of a scenario, so you get the temple construction set there from Sarissa Precision, and the whole idea is that you play as two gangs who have been sent to rob this temple and destroy the statue within it to kind of embarrass the senator and get some political points on your side. However, there is a dangerous Gaul that has been used to bodyguard this temple, and you now have to contend with him and the opposing gangs. So this gives you pretty much everything you need to play with Gangs of Rome, as well as all the accessories and all scenario bits and pieces as well, and of course the miniatures too. And just a nice little setting for you to get started in the world of Gangs of Rome, which I know has been quite a favourite for a lot of people in the community. And no reason why not. Footsore and Warbanner have done a really, really good job with this, and there's a real nice sense of narrative and everything to it as well. And we've talked about it on previous Weekenders, going into a little bit more detail about how crowds work and that kind of thing. So a very awesome little game, and there's a little start set to get you going in the world of Gangs of Rome.
This Gaul, is his name Asterix by any chance?
You could call him Asterix if you wanted to. I'm not. I think there is actually a name for him, but I can't remember what he was called now.
I think I saw it on the picture above.
Is this the Gaul
yeah,
here?
that's the Gaul. Oh, it's not Asterix.
Well, the funny thing is, he's a dangerous Gaul. He's reading a book.
Nothing more dangerous than a book.
Sure
no, he's trying to beat you to death with a
roof tile.
That's what
man.
it is.
Okay, sorry, that looked like a book to me. Apologies.
It's okay, Justin. We wouldn't expect you to be able to properly identify a book, man. So it's like, I've been hard on you this morning.
You're being very harsh today.
Harshness. Last count, over 350 books in my collection. Thank you.
350 books in your collection.
Come see me when you start a real collection.
This is where you keep it.
Justin's got a very impressive library of books.
He does.
Has
yeah.
he?
I
This
read a
is
lot.
awesome. I need to come up and have a look at your library,
You're
man.
not coming up to mine.
Oh,
Might
very
find the
nice.
place down knowing you.
Right, from Romans on to Pirates.
Yay.
A new Time Stories adventure, Ben.
Yeah, so Time Stories is a game by Space Cowboys where you take on the role of time agents that go back to particular events in history, maybe even the future, and you have to try and work out how to solve a problem, a little bit like Quantum Leap in a way. You have to solve a problem and then you can get out. And what you'll do normally in this game is you'll go back, you'll go through it once, and you'll fail, and then you'll do it again, and then try and work out the path that you took the first time around and piece things together and build the puzzle up until you can complete it in one run.
Yeah.
So this new adventure takes you back to the golden age of piracy because two of your time agents have gone missing, and you have been sent back to this age to try and find out where they are and bring them back. And of course, this means you're going to be inhabiting the bodies of some pirates from the time period, and be doing lots of swashbuckling and mutineering probably, and a little bit of treasure hunting as well. And this game's looking amazing. All of the adventures for it are pretty awesome as well. I've played through 3 of them. So I played the one from the core box, as well as there's one called the Master Case, and there's another one which is set in like a fantasy world as well, and so like a different time and realm of reality, which is awesome. And they're all really good. As I say, they do require you to play the game multiple times, but then once they're done, you can't really go back and do them again. So it's got that kind of sort of escape room feel to them, which is something that you should keep in mind when it comes to this kind of game.
Yeah.
And as long as you're okay with the idea of cooperative working around the table and working out a puzzle and taking your time with things and sort of experiencing the narrative and the story coming together, then you'll enjoy this. For example, if you like a little bit of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and things like that, this is probably a game to go and check out. So yeah, it's nice to see adventure for this. The guys at Space Carvers have been doing loads of these, and hopefully we'll see more to come as well. So yeah, one to watch out for, this piratical one that they're doing now.
It's fantastic.
This one intrigues me. Because how many times have you seen a time travel game where you are the time travel just thrown back in time, you land, you don't know anybody, you have no backstory in that sort of time frame or in the world you're in at that moment, you can feel a bit lost.
Yeah.
With this sending you back and you're taking on the role of a character who already lives within that time frame, it sort of lets you anchor yourself and place yourself within the narrative a little better, I think.
There's an interesting thought has come to my mind, Justin, right? And that's let's imagine that time travel into the past was possible. Okay, and that we had a little box here in the studio.
Yes.
Okay, and we could stick you in that box,
Right.
and then just zap you back in time.
Right.
But we don't know exactly where we've zapped you.
Right.
Is his TARDIS a battle phone?
So an interesting conversation has come up within science circles recently,
Right.
where they were talking about what if, how would we know that a civilization hasn't existed on Earth before our civilization? Because to all intents and purposes, anything that we have constructed now, would probably be crushed to dust within about 20 to 30 million years.
Right.
Okay? There would be no trace. None of our metals, none of our plastics, nothing. I think even our potential radioactive signatures might still be detectable, but that's it. So they were trying to work out, with everything churning and being crushed to dust, basically, how would we know whether a civilization has existed before? One thought that came to my mind was, well, you would find their stuff maybe still orbiting Earth, but anything that's orbiting planet Earth would only last about 70 million years. Now remember, the gap between ourselves and the dinosaurs was 65 million years.
Yeah.
And then it goes back further than that. So how would we know? And what kind of civilization do you think it could have been?
That's very interesting, because I'm going to draw things back to where I always draw things back, Discworld.
Yes.
Because Terry Pratchett joined up with 2 scientists, and he wrote a series called The Science of the Discworld, where each book would explore a different scientific concept, interspersed with him writing fictional chapters about it. And the first one was all about evolution of society and different civilizations. And it presented some of the different concepts of intelligence and identity and civilization that could have been around before us.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things you have to assume. One of 2 things will have happened to the society so that we wouldn't actually have evidence of it today. Number 1, some form of societal collapse, where there are no more of that society and anything they've made or built is just being left to rot and go away.
Yep. Wait, for number 2, let me get Ben to guess number 2. Ben, what would number 2 be?
So number 2 would be that they sort of left, so it was like an exodus, and they left the planet, maybe?
That would be exactly correct.
Is that great? Hey!
Because, again, then the society no longer exists on the planet, and anything they've left behind can turn to dust.
Yes.
Otherwise, the society is still going to be there, is still going to be continuing, and is basically going to generate more new stuff, which replaces the stuff that's going away. So that's the only way you could have a society living on this planet with no evidence of it before us.
So we have zapped you back in time.
If the society just collapses completely and
Yeah,
it's
that
no
was
longer...
option one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I wasn't listening.
I think sometimes I speak and all Sam hears is the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah, 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 wah.
So
Very good.
we've took we're zapping you back in time.
Right.
There's no prospect of you ever coming back.
Okay.
Okay. Where you are, you now have to reside.
Right.
Okay. So, I'm going to throw a few scenarios at
It's
you
like a book I read
to
once.
see what you would do.
Okay.
So, you've met a civilization.
Right.
Okay. You've arrived back, and the civilization are fish. Okay.
Fish.
Yes. So there's only one. There's basically there's only one supercontinent.
Right.
Okay. You can't live in the middle of it because there's really nothing there. There's no plant life that you'd be able to eat. Not that you'd be able to eat it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So your only prospect is to intermingle with the fish. Okay.
Right.
And they are exactly fish, except they can communicate with one another.
Right.
But they don't
can't-
speak English.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh.
Well, I kind of got that.
That's right. They speak trout. Okay.
Right.
So what
As long
would
as
you
it's
do?
not the
How
trout,
would you
no crap.
how would you integrate? And what would you do with your life?
Well, the first thing I would have to do is look to basic survival.
Uh-huh.
So, shelter, food, fresh water. These
Yeah.
are the things I would need to get first.
Don't be eating the fish.
The fish are nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So the fish, basically
Are there any land creatures?
basically a hole in the sky opened up,
Yeah. Are there any
and-
land creatures?
and
yet?
you fell,
Yes.
and
so
you
I
were
thought-
naked. Okay.
Why am I naked?
Because your clothes don't go
That's
through
how-
time travel.
that's how time travel works,
Time travel
yeah.
works, man.
Right.
Okay. So
You've seen the Terminator.
yeah,
How
I've seen the Terminator.
Okay.
yeah.
How
Okay.
advanced is this fish
Well,
society?
I'm about to explain. So a hole in the sky opened, and you fall into the sea. Okay,
Right.
and the fish they look at you. For a moment, they're wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, but they probably work out what's going on much faster than you do. Okay,
Right.
so then they come up and they give you kisses and stuff to revive you. Okay, and
Okay.
they're nice fish. Okay. And they band together, and they're all talking trout
Yeah.
with one
Yeah.
another. And they bring you up to a beach, okay, where there's these fish have evolved legs, okay,
Right.
and they've got you a rudimentary form of a banana, okay.
Right.
So they've sorted you out with food, okay. Now,
This must be the most nutritious rudimentary banana in history.
well, it's not as if one banana has to last you for the length of your life. You know, there'll be other there's always another banana.
All right.
So there you are with your fish friends. Now they're very, very respectful. Okay, okay. You have the opportunity here, all right, to potentially become head fish.
But
This
I'm
is
not
like-
a fish.
This is like Gulliver's Travels, Justin. Now.
So what would you do?
We do this on the road a lot.
So
know.
what would you do? What would you do? How would you like?
I would
Would you
basically-
settle? Would you settle in with the fish, or would you go off and live a nomadic life? Or
I would probably just get myself set so that I could survive, then start exploring around. Because at this stage, I won't know that that's the only society.
yeah,
So I probably would go starting exploring, coming back periodically to see how they're getting on.
yeah.
If the communication is vocal, I might start trying to learn to communicate, obviously.
Yeah,
If not, I'm kind of knackered.
yeah.
But other than that, I would just have to try and live
So
my
what
life.
tactics would you use to try and learn trout?
It depends. What kind of a language is trout? What's it sound like?
Well,
Give me a demonstration. Yeah, I can't make those sounds. I'm done.
well, have a go.
No, not a hope.
Okay, right.
I'm imagining this would end up like Gulliver's Travels, where even when he got back to humanity after somehow,
there is no way to get back.
even if he did somehow get back, he'd have become so adapted to trout life that would be the society he now prefers.
Yes.
Because in Gulliver's Travels, it finishes with him preferring the company of horses over humans because of his time among the Hunan.
Right.
Nice.
So
Okay.
let's reversed. Okay,
Yeah.
we've beamed you through.
Okay.
This time,
I'm
okay,
falling. I'm
you're
naked.
falling.
Okay.
You are naked.
Yep.
Okay. Unfortunately, you have no choice in that. That just is time
that's-
travel.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
that's-
just time travel.
This is life.
So, but this time,
Aye.
right? It's a few 100 million years ago. Okay,
Right.
there is a society, but they're insectoid. Okay,
Right.
and they communicate via a combination of a weird form of telepathy
Right.
and pheromones.
Right.
Pheromones. Okay.
I have problems with bugs,
Yeah.
so I'm running.
You'd run.
I would run away from that. I would be terrified.
Right. Well, what is like
An
okay,
irrational fear. I would be terrified. I would be, nope, to hell with this. I'm out.
but they catch you
How do they catch me?
because you're never going to outrun a bug. These are like big bugs, man. You're not going to outrun them.
Then I am probably
So-
pissing and shitting myself in
Now
terror.
it's a case of get your filthy
Okay.
paws
So
off
what you're
with your
saying is
damn
you're
dirty
releasing
bugs.
pheromones. Yes.
No,
So the bugs catch you, but they're friendly bugs.
I don't care. I don't
Okay.
like bugs.
Right, so one bug reaches out. Now, it's very rudimentary, the telepathy. The telepathy between bugs is great,
Yeah.
but your mind isn't as sophisticated as theirs. So the telepathy with you is a little bit ropey, a little bit 14.4 kilobyte modem kind of level, okay? So it says, Justin, eat.
Fear, fear, fear. Bugger off. Fear,
Justin, eat.
fear. Running away. Fear, fear.
Meanwhile, they're going, idiot! He's an idiot! It's like, so how would you try to...
Having a phobia is not idiotic.
Well, yeah, look, it's fine. If I ever
uncontrollable.
woke up in a civilization of airplanes, I would also be in fear. But, you know, it's like...
Yeah, there's no way to get
No one
past
showed this
something
man
like
the
that.
Transformer
Yeah, there is.
I
movies.
would not be fit to deal with it.
There
I
is.
would crack.
Time is a great healer, Justin. So
I guess I've got all the time in the world.
What they've done, okay, is they're trying to work out what you want to eat. Okay, they're not trying to eat you; they're trying to work out what you want to eat. Okay,
Right.
So because of your lack of enthusiasm in communicating to you, right,
They
have fed you some of their grubby offspring. Okay, you've had to eat it.
Fear! Fear! Vomit! Ah!
But now things have settled down. You realize they're not going to kill you. They weren't as kissy as the fish, but they're nice, and you have a better chance of communicating with them. Okay, so how would you've gone past fear now? How would you look to integrate into that society?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't integrate into that
No,
society.
no.
Even though there's no prospect of you ever coming back or ever
Yeah.
doing anything.
Yeah,
this is it.
this is
Your
what you're
one
not getting,
chance
Warren.
your one chance of communicating, living any sort of a normal life, having wife and bug children or something like that. This is it. This is your only chance.
I
careful,
would
man.
live alone as a hermit till my dying day.
Probably wise considering some of the mating rituals
Yeah.
of bugs.
That's a fair point,
The
Sam.
female
Yeah.
of the species is more deadly than the male.
But they're friendly. They're friendly. Okay.
Yeah,
They would keep you around. They'd keep you
yeah,
around.
well, I would just find my own quiet little corner of the world, away from everything, and just that's enough.
What if they were supremely more intelligent than you? Okay.
Then they would be wise enough to leave the bald monkey alone.
Well, this is what I'm wondering. Like, what if they were like of the level of, like, I don't know, like a university student or something like that, and they decided to
Then I'm in trouble because then they're going to be yobs about it.
and then
They're going to see the pink monkey running away and go, right, get him!
What if they decide to keep you as a pet? What would you like? Honestly, if you were living,
This is
as
just
the,
an episode of Rick and Morty.
if you were living as the pet of a bug, who's a supremely intelligent bug,
Right.
of an undergraduate level of intelligence, Justin,
Right.
And he's decided to keep you as a pet.
Right.
And
What would you do? Or would you just say, do you know what, this isn't too bad, especially if you feed your burgers?
I tell you what, I would be a cat.
A cat.
You ever come home to a cat and the little bugger just does not want to be there, and you know the little bugger hates you, and it's constantly knocking stuff over, showing its displeasure.
And peeing on things and,
Yeah,
and
of
leaving
course.
its pheromones on stuff.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, and just being a complete nuisance.
I knew you would have a supreme strategy. I love that idea. So basically, if you end up in that scenario, you are sorted because you will become a cat. Love it.
Tell me this is not
You
an
send a
excellent
human back to integrate with bugs, and he does it by becoming a cat.
plan. You're the one that made me a
Brilliant.
pet. My original plan had been to say, no, I'm out of here.
Okay, on to more serious stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, more technically interesting stuff, at least. We are doing our we're launching into articles and things like that based around the First World War.
Yes.
Okay. We have some news, I believe, on First World War as well.
Yeah, so when we were at Salute, we got to talk with Great Escape Games, and their new game that they brought out quite recently is called 1914, and this is set during the first couple of years of World War One. So, as we've been exploring in some of our article series from Oriskany and such, and Neve's 1789, that's looking towards the end of the war. This is going right back to the start. So if any of you have watched some of the TV shows from the BBC, which were all about the Great War a couple of years ago now, this is the kind of thing we're looking at here. So this is still the era of big field guns, massed infantry walking across fields, and cavalry charges. And so they've got some starter sets for you to check out in 12mm for both the, for the British, the Germans, the French, and the Belgians, who were all key players, obviously, in this theatre at the time. And this is looking World War One from a very different standpoint, going before the trench warfare of the period, and instead looking at some of the engagements from that time. So go and check out that post, because we did an interview with the guys at Great Escape Games at Salute, and it was really interesting. So yeah, go and check that one out.
Absolutely. Well, and we have a fascinating article series underway by Oriskany, her historical editor, looking specifically at gaming.
And Neves 1789.
Yes, and Neves 1789. They've got this kind of 50-50 team project going on. What it's going to be, well, do you know what? We'll sit down with Jim, and Jim can tell us about it himself.
Progress comes to a world of magic as science and the arcane combine to make marvels. Meet steampunk inventors and orc mystics at the Volsun Hub on beastsofwar.com. Anime cyberpunk style meets skirmish combat in Infinity. Experience 8 high-tech factions and fight to control the human sphere at the Infinity Hub on beastsofwar.com.
Okay, everybody, I've sat down with John and James, our historical editor, to actually have a chat about some World War One gaming. So, James, you have a new series coming up. Has it already started, yeah?
Actually, yeah. Our article series started this past Monday, so that'll be April 23rd, for Centennial Wargaming in the Great War. So what we're doing is we're looking over some of the battles that have taken place for the 100th anniversary of the battles that we're going through right now, so the spring and summer of 1918.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you're collaborating with a few people on this one, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So some of the collaborators that we're working on for this article series are Sven Desmond, that's Nebs 1789 on the website. He's a really good writer, knows his material, and helped out with a huge library of gaming photos. Him and his friend Eric 101, also on the site, helped out with a lot of really great photos on the site. A really great help with a lot of great battlefield photos for the table. Really couldn't have done this article series without him. I always say that photographs are the big killer as far as whether or not we can do an article series on a given topic. And he really came through and helped us out on this one.
Fantastic. And you're doing your usual 5-part series. What sort of time period are you focusing in on there?
Well, like we said, we're doing the centennial series of centennial anniversaries of the battles in spring and summer of 1918. So part one, just to get it started, we kind of had this last week. We're taking a very quick background look at how the Great War had gone up to this point. We talk about the St. Michael Offensive that started on 21 March of 1918, and then we go forward from there through the battles that end up in June.
Okay, cool. And then for part one as well, what else are we seeing during that sort of segment of the articles, just as a sort of cliff notes for everybody at home?
Okay, so part one, like I said, we've already published this one out. It was primarily a very quick background of how the Great War gets started, because not everybody knows this stuff. So a really quick look at how the Great War gets started and how it's progressed up to this point. 1918, the summer of 1918 is, of course, kind of near the end of World War I. So it starts in the summer of 1914, goes through 15, 16, 17. It's now the early summer, late spring of 1918. This is a really important part I think, of the Great War, because it's the one time we see Germany finally released from its classic strategic dilemma. Germany, whenever they would have these wars in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, would be faced with that two-front war problem. Mm-hmm. As soon as they go to war in Russia, they're at war with France and England. As soon as they are at war with France and England, they're at war with Russia. Spring of 1918, they're finally down to just one real front. Mm-hmm. There's some stuff going on in the Middle East and around the world, but Imperial Russia has been knocked out of the war by a string of really, really bad defeats. The Bolshevik Revolution, the Romanov dynasty has fallen. We've all, read the books on this. So now, for a very brief window, Germany has, believe it or not, this sounds kind of crazy, a numerical superiority over their enemies. The Russians are out. The Americans technically joined the war in 1917. They haven't really geared up yet. Their army isn't really having, it hasn't really had a chance to fully mobilize yet into the field. So Americans aren't really in yet. The Russians are out. It's just the British and the French who are exhausted after battles like Passchendaele, Ypres, Verdun, and the Somme. These are like huge meat grinder bloodbaths that have gone on for years and years and years. And the Germans say, look, if we're ever really going to win this war, it has to be now. Once the Americans really get here in numbers and they get, themselves organized, they get everything put together, we're going to be back to being outnumbered again, and we're never going to win. So it really had to be now.
Mm-hmm. And this is the point of the war where everything was bogging down into trench warfare, yeah?
Oh, this was really trench warfare trying to break itself away. You find the earlier campaigns like Cambrai and stuff introduced the tank, so there was ways and means. The French had them, the British had them, and the Germans were playing around with the A7V, which was that monstrous 18-man crew piece of garbage, which didn't do so well in the trench crossing or driving across shell craters. It tended to fall over. But you find two periods of mass movement in the First World War. You find the first 5 to 6 months of 1914. There was a lot of maneuver going on. Particularly in the Western Front, where they kept trying to outmaneuver each other and then eventually reached the coast and went, now we're locked down.
Yeah.
And then you find at the start of 1918, particularly in the spring, in the period we're talking about here now, is a lot of offensives start happening. A lot of movement starts to kick back into gear.
Right.
Because the Germans have seen what the British can do with the tank, have seen what the French can do with the tank, and they've started to think, well, we now need to start being a bit more proactive here. We can't just sit and rest on our well-placed bunkers and trenches. We have to move now. We have to defeat them, as James already says, to stop the American build-up, to hamper that.
Right, so the Americans are already on map, actually getting into position at this stage then?
I believe they're getting
there. The Americans have some divisions in place. There are some battles in 1917 where they're involved. They're just not on a really big scale. 1918 sees the first battles, and we'll get to this in some of the other parts, where the Americans really start to get a little more involved. They're still not involved like en masse. World War I's kind of interesting. I think one of the reasons why World War I might be more interesting to some people than even World War II is the Americans, and of course Soviets, because there aren't no Soviets, but the Americans and the Russians never really get a chance to take over World War I the way they kind of did in World War II. In fact, as we go into some of the later parts, we start talking about the equipment. It's almost like Lend-Lease in reverse. World War II, everyone's pretty much using American equipment by the end of the war. There's all the Shermans are American. It's all American stuff. World War I, it's kind of the opposite. Americans are still using British mortars, still using French machine rifles, whatever they called it, that M1915 disaster. But so there's almost like a Lend-Lease in reverse, and the Americans are really never able to, or they never really want to, but they never really are able to take over the war and turn the whole war into their color the way they would do in World War II.
You also see the Americans receiving French-built tanks as well.
Yeah.
They get a lot of the Renault FT-17s and stuff sent over to them. And
there was an interesting one. I was watching a documentary where it actually said they already had the BAR during World War I, but they didn't want to deploy it. Is that right?
Very, very, very end. So late in the war that it's not actually in this article series. That comes out in like September 1918. There is the M1915, We'll get into that a little later. It's I think the French called it a machine rifle. It's voted on a number of websites as the worst machine gun ever produced in the history of mankind. It's a disaster, but it's the only thing that the U.S. Army, U.S. Marine Corps, the French had. The British had weapons like the Lewis gun, an American design that the Americans didn't want to build for some reason, so the British got it under license. They started producing. They had some success with that. Germans had a lot more success with some of their stormtrooper weapons we'll get into later. So yeah, there is a BAR. It's not quite the BAR that we'd see in World War II. It's an upgraded version, and this earlier version of the BAR comes out at the very, very end.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. And then the French one, it had that weird banana mag on it with the sights.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, like, who thinks this is a good idea to go into muddy trench warfare with an open-sided magazine where the spring is just going to get gummed up?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So yeah, but we have a map here.
Yeah.
We're going to show, because in the next few parts, we're talking about the various offensives as well.
Okay.
So I believe in part 2, James, we're talking about the St. Michael offensive.
So part 1 is pretty much like here's the background, here's the setup, here's what the war had gotten to up to that point, and here's what the German situation was, what their plan was, what they were up against, what they hoped to accomplish. Part 2, yeah, you're right, is when when the Germans were actually launching the first big attack, that St. Michael offensive, that's named after Germany's patron saint. The idea was to force a breakthrough toward Amiens, and hopefully I'm saying that right. I actually brushed up on my French butchery a little bit last night, so hopefully I don't get these two wrong. Toward Amiens, and they don't really quite make it. They do a tremendous amount of damage. The British 5th Army is annihilated almost in place. British 3rd Army is really badly beaten up, holding on by their fingernails at places like Amiens and Villers-Bretonneux. Or Villers-Bretonneux, and this is where we see history's very first. There's a series of battles around this village. We see history's very first tank versus tank battle. Tanks have been in use since 1916, but this is the first time we've had one tank and its crew driving around the battlefield. I think that's one of the other guys' tanks. What are we supposed to shoot at them? hey, enemy tank, we're going to go ahead and take a shot at you if that's okay, all right? I'm sorry, what's that? Sir, he says he might shoot back at us.
Yeah,
yeah, that's fair. We're kind of new at this, so just bear with us. It's April 24th. We've literally just passed the 100th anniversary of it a couple of days ago. I think it was one A7, one of those 18-man school buses from hell John was talking about earlier, against 2 British Mark IV females and 1 Mark IV male, I think. I might be a little bit wrong on that, but pretty sure it's 1 tank against 3. And it's not terribly, decisive engagement, but that was the first time tanks actually shot at each other in combat.
Yeah, and it must have been like watching, I don't know, 2 whales trying to have a fight, on a beach. It was a very laborious thing because the A7V could only do 3 to 4 miles an hour.
Right.
It had 18 men sat in it that all had machine guns and 1 cannon. Yeah. And on the British side, you had a tank that had 8-man crew, 4 of which were trying to drive the thing, and everyone else was trying to gun it. And the commanders must have just had their hands so full, just going, "What the heck do I do with this?"
You see, I have to wonder, with the designs of those old tanks, I mean, like, the exhaust for those vented into the crew compartment a bit. So did they maybe get halfway through and go, "Okay, lads, we need a breather break. Are you okay on that side? Okay, we'll all take a breather break."
I could imagine it was one of the most tense moments for a then tank crew to have, because they're now facing something that they can see that can kill them.
Yeah.
And they know that they could kill it if they got their round on first. The problem is that neither crew knew how to shoot at another vehicle.
Right.
They'd never done it before. They'd always been firing at fixed positions, machine gun bunkers, nests, all that sort of stuff, trench works.
Yeah.
They'd never fired at something that was moving and shooting back at them at the same time.
Well, technically moving. An A7V is sort of a stationary target.
It doesn't.
I can almost picture the infantry like stopping the battle around these guys, popcorn and like, is this all they do? They just park at each other and no.
You just try to hit.
But on a more serious note, what you were saying before, John, Justin, is there was no like engine compartment. These engines just completely vented all their fumes straight into the crew compartment. And from what I've read, there's been some great Osprey books written on this stuff, especially this one particular tank firefight. I don't even really want to call it a battle. And yeah, where they say there's more casualties to asphyxiation, carbon monoxide poisoning, heat stroke, and things like that than there is to enemy fire. Yeah, these tanks were a bigger danger to their crews than they were to the enemy a lot of times.
And if you would allow me to wax a couple of minutes.
Okay, you have 1 minute.
I have one. No, that's not long enough.
60 seconds.
It's not long enough. I remember a story on similar vein to that where the king decided he wanted to have a look at these new tank things. This was back in 1916, before they were properly used.
Yeah.
And the king was watching this thing driving around, and he was like, "Yeah, it's quite impressive. You know, it's doing its thing. It moves across nice rough ground." And then they decided, for whatever reason, that they were going to really show it off by driving it up on top of an ammunition bunker and then driving it off the other side. So they'd ramp up to this thing, and then it was a sheer drop. And I think it was something like a 9-foot sheer drop. So they drove this thing over. I think it was a Mark II or something.
Yeah.
They drove it off the side. The thing plummets nose down into the ground.
As it would.
Slowly trundles itself off and then comes to a halt.
Yeah.
And the king claps and gets very excited. He's like, "Oh, that's really robust. That's an amazing piece of kit." And he walks over and the crew start to come out. So 3 people get out of the tank and all come to attention, looking a little dazed.
Yeah.
You know, hats are on the wrong way and all that sort of stuff. And they salute the king and they shake his hand. They have a little chat with him. And then you can see in the footage before it ends, the general turns the king bodily and starts to walk him away. Because he now realizes that there's about 6 other people or 5 other people lying unconscious in the bottom of that tank, because when it went over, they all got thrown to the front of the thing.
Yeah, I'm saying 3 guys. There's more than 3 guys in the tank.
Yeah,
and the general's like, "Very good, Your Majesty.
Very
Nothing
good,
more to
Your
see
Majesty.
here." So
Do you expect the royalty to be able to count? No, that's someone else's job. He has someone hired to do that. It's just everything that
Hey,
surrounds.
it's King George V. He can count up to at least 5. We know that.
All right. So then, part 3, James. What's it about?
Part 3 opens up. So Eric Ludendorff is the guy in charge of these German attacks. And he throws his big Sunday punch straight at the center of the British along the Somme in near Amiens. That's 3rd and 5th British armies that we talked about a second ago.
Yeah.
The British are holding on barely. One of the reasons they're able to hold on is they're sending in these reserves from all other parts of their front. Problem is, these other parts of their front are starting to get weak. Ludendorff sees this and says, "Okay, to stop the British from sending more reserves to this critical sector, I'm going to throw them a punch somewhere else and pin down those reserves so that they don't reinforce against where I'm trying to break through." And this opens up what he calls originally the George Offensive. I think it gets downgraded a little bit later. They call it the Georgette Offensive for some reason. This comes a little bit later in April, further north. This is up in the battlefields of Flanders. This is where you start seeing places like Passchendaele. These battles have been going on for years, but now there's yet another battle. It's like the 4th battle of Ypres, another battle of Passchendaele. They all have these numbers now. It's starting to sound like a bad movie franchise. It's just battle after battle after battle over these same patches of ground. This battle takes place further north, up in Flanders. So the Germans throw in 2 more armies, where the British 1st and 2nd armies, which are already badly weakened, they've never really recovered from these previous bloodbaths, infamously at Passchendaele and other places right around there. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battle of Ypres. And now the Germans are trying, once again, this right hook up towards the Channel Coast, towards ports like Boulogne, Calais, and Dunkirk. Stop me when it starts to sound familiar. It's Dunkirk, the prequel. And Sven, I should say, Nev's 1789 was really, really passionate about that part because from Belgium himself, this is one of the times he gets to write about the Belgians really get involved in the war. They have an army in place. There's some of the battles that they took place in, some of the things they had to do to their own country, sort of a scorched earth policy, except with water. They had to open up a bunch of dikes and flood a whole big part of their country to impede German attacks. He's had family relations fight there. So it really is a big thing for him. He lives very close to some of the battlefields. He can get in his car and drive 10 miles down the road, and boom, he's at some of these places. Yeah. A lot of great photographs, a lot of good writing there. Part 4 is really kind of personal for me. And that's where Ludendorff sees, again, he throws this attack. That gets slowed down. He throws this attack in the north. That starts to slow down because now the French are sending in reinforcements as well. So far, these battles have been against British, Belgians, Canadians, Australians. There's even 2 divisions of Portuguese in there. So far, the French aren't that heavily involved in these battles. That changes when the French start sending in reinforcements on the southern shoulder of that salient down near Villers-Bretonneux we were talking about before. Amiens, couldn't think of the name of the town for a second. So Ludendorff says, okay, I'm going to give the French something else to worry about. He launches this big attack down across the Aisne River towards the Marne. This is where we saw that big climactic battle in 1914. Again, these battles take place over and over and over again in the same areas. So the Germans launch this attack towards the Marne River. It's meant to just tie down some French reserves. The thing that happens is that it actually scores a pretty major breakthrough. The trench system, like John was saying earlier, is really starting to fall apart. And for the first time in 4 years, World War I is really on the move again. Ludendorff sees this supposed diversion attack actually doing very well and says, you know what, I'm going to make this a real attack. This is the attack that gets within like 37 miles of Paris. This is when you see the Paris guns start dropping artillery shells down into the streets of Paris. And it's 1914 all over again. The Germans are on the horizon. They're about to be driving down the boulevards of Paris any second now. The French send in like some of their last reserves. They're so desperate they say, okay, we'll give these Americans a shot. And one of the divisions has 2 brigades of United States Marines in it. This leads to the Battle of Belleau Wood. Probably not that well known over on that side of the water, but over here, especially if you're in the United States Marine Corps, this battle is legend. This is the battle that makes the United States Marine Corps. Up until now, the Marine Corps has been this kind of more traditional Marine force where it's more like a commando unit, or these are guys that you have on board your ship to prevent other people from boarding your ships or to board other people's ships. This is what makes them the actual, almost like America's Second Army. You're going to have divisions in the field fighting major battles. They're basically a 4th branch of our service. This is where that happens. This is where the term devil dog comes from, or Teufelhunden. There's actually a mistranslation of that. The Germans thought that the Marines fought so well that they called them hounds of hell, or the dogs of Satan, the dogs of the devil. So you get this term Teufelhunden or devil dogs. Marines call themselves devil dogs to this very day. This battle is with the United States Marine Corps on a daily basis to this day. The 100th anniversary of that is coming up in June of 2018. So if I let this anniversary go by and didn't do something about it, some fellow former Marines of mine would probably hunt me down and I'd wind up on a milk carton somewhere. So we definitely had to do that. Part 5 is pretty much just a wrap up. We talk about some naval action. We talk about some other important stuff that happened in April, May, and June of 1918, 100th anniversaries that we're going to be passing through. The birth of the Royal Air Force as an official service is in April of 1918. The death of Baron von Richthofen, the Red Baron, the ace of Germany's ace of aces. He dies sometime in late April 1918. We're going through the 100th anniversary of that right now. We already talked about the first tank-on-tank battle. There's some naval action. Let me see if I can get this right. The Zeebrugge raid. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. The Gneisenau offensive. Finally, Ludendorff is running out of reserves. He's not throwing out too many more of these Sunday punches. And now the Allies start to come back, and this leads into some of the Allied counteroffensives, the 100 Days Offensive, battles that lead into Argonne Forest, that are eventually going to lead to the armistice of November 1918. And, of course, the end of the war.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really interesting year for the anniversaries, with it being 100 years since that war happened. I mean, I know growing up, World War I was something we were always taught about in school, you know, the war that killed a generation or more.
And in reality, I think there's going to be people that disagree with me on this, but I think when you look back at the numbers and you look back at it, it didn't so much. It didn't kill as many as World War II did. That's for sure.
No,
it's somewhere in the region of 12 million in First World War and 72 million in World War II, something like that. The numbers are a bit all over the place.
Yeah,
but thank you for not throwing out that 55 million number anymore. I'm so tired of that. Yes, 72 million plus.
Yeah.
They're still counting.
Yeah. But World War One's seen a lot of things like the whole death of a generation thing. That to me represents just the grind of it. You know, it is literally forcing entire families into this fight just to bang their heads up against the same trench wall that say their father did a year before or something like that. And it has a very emotive place in European and American history as well, clearly because the battles that the Americans took part in have been revered and they've created a lot of traditions that are still held today.
Yeah, but there seemed to be such a shift in the tactics of warfare within that one war. I mean, like, wars before that, was there anything even close to it?
Wars before that were mostly, from the end of, like, what we would consider pike and shot era. From then, it essentially boiled down to small colonial wars and little things that happened here and there. And then you had this. Yeah. And as in Blackadder goes forth, when Baldric asks, why did this war start? And Blackadder simply says, because it was stupid not to. Because it was just going to happen. And the amount of arms build up, the push of technology, push of technology, the push of all this stuff, arming all these countries all gearing up, and they're just waiting for the spark. Yeah. And technically Franz Ferdinand being shot was the spark. Yeah. Because everybody had so many alliances with each other that it became a domino effect. So that guy got shot. All right, those enemies are my enemies, that enemy's my friend, but that enemy's friend is mine, and everything just went and just it fell upon itself. Yeah. This whole big system.
To kind of zoom out and take a look at like the bigger, let's look at these last 200 years, like the sweep of history. You've got since Christ was a corporal, as the saying goes, England and France have been fighting wars. England and Spain have been fighting wars. These are mostly based on religion, Catholic versus Protestant. This war has been going on since before Henry VIII. This has been going on since Henry V in Shakespeare time. This is way back. With the end of the Napoleonic Wars, only starting to settle down a little bit by the mid-1800s. There's a little bit more turmoil in France with some political drama inside of France, but by the mid-1800s, you have England and France actually as allies in the Crimean War against the Russians. Most of the wars are now not in Europe, they're abroad, like John was saying. We do have one big one in the Crimea, although is that really a European war? That's up to your interpretation. So then we come to this area, okay, so then the Germans start unifying. You have a series of wars where the Germans kind of pull together. You have a big war, the Austro-Prussian War of 1866, something like that. The Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71. Now there's a new major enemy on the field for the British and the French, this new British and French coalition to fight. It takes about 40 years for that turkey to cook in the pot, so to speak. For a long time, the British are comfortable, they're safe because they have such a huge and crushing lead in naval supremacy. I mean, the British Navy, the Royal Navy has always been amazingly powerful, at least in this period, compared to its potential rivals. And right now, the only rival that they're going to have that they're really enemies with are the Germans. We're so far ahead of the Germans, don't worry about it. The British almost shoot themselves in the foot when Jackie Fisher builds HMS Dreadnought in 1906. This battleship has now steam turbine. I don't get into too many technical details, but steam turbines, all 12-inch gun armament. The second it's built and finished, as soon as painting it, every other battleship in the world is obsolete. Congratulations, Great Britain, you just threw away your lead, because before you had 20 and Germany had 3, Germany had 10, you still had 20. Now you both have 0, or you have 1 and Germany has 0. This starts an arms race in 1906, especially a naval arms race that a lot of people think was the World War I started in 1906. This, with the launch of HMS Dreadnought, this is when the fuse was lit. Archduke Ferdinand, that was just an excuse. That was, like you're saying, that's just the spark. The spark doesn't cause the explosion. The tank of gasoline that the spark falls into, that's located next to a fireworks factory. That's across the street from a nuclear power plant. That's the explosion waiting to happen, and that's when we really see the setup.
You see that very much so, and I totally agree with HMS Dreadnought being the beginning of it all, because that particular naval arms race didn't end until the birth of the aircraft carrier.
Really?
I would argue that, because you get
They
you get the big
tried to
guns.
end it with some of the naval conferences of the 20s. I don't know how successful they were.
Well, Yamato was still built, so
Yeah, yeah. All right, James, quick question then. What game systems are you guys using through the article series to sort of get this on the tabletop?
Okay, so my collaborator, Nev1789, and his friend Eric are using Flames of War Great War in 15 millimeters. So, Flames of War, we all know it as a major World War II system. Flames of War also has a great World War I. I don't know if it's a supplement. It really is a kind of its own. Obviously, it's based very heavily on Flames of War 3rd edition, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with World War I or some of these other battles is you can't just, predate some of the weapons to World War I weapons and run a World War II system with it. I mean, technically, you can. You're going to get a very valid game. It just might not be very fun. But Flames of War sat down, or I should say Battlefront sat down, went through the rules, and made it specific to World War I, and that so well. There's the Villers Bretonneux campaign supplement that they came out with for that. That allows players to link together a couple of battles right around this small but key area that's right at that tip of that salient where the Germans almost managed their breakthrough through Amiens. My friend Aras and I, over here in Florida, are working with another one of our reskins of the Valor and Victory system. So Valor and Victory was a squad-based hex and counter system for World War II. We've, like we did for Vietnam, we took the counters, redrew them, printed up some new maps, added in the proper support weapons and bolt-action rifles, so semi-automatic rifles, things like that for the Germans, for Germans, British, and the American Marines, American Army in World War I. We even have some Panzer General, not Panzer Blitz. I'm not talking about Panzer Blitz for a change. Panzer General. That's that old 1991 console or video game. Somebody, Phil Champ, sat down and came up with a World War I version of that called Kaiser General. We even tried a little bit of that for like the big operational scale stuff. So yeah, we got a couple systems that we're putting into the series.
Very cool. Very, very cool. All right, anything we've missed?
Just some really quick highlights. We already talked about the first big tank versus tank battle. We got the first big use, or not the first big use, but probably the epitome of the Germans using their stormtrooper infantry tactics. This is the first time you see the MP-18 submachine gun being used, lighter versions of the MG-08 regular belt-fed machine gun, light support weapon role. These stormtroopers are amazing. The more I read about them, the more I'm impressed. These guys aren't working for Darth Vader. These aren't those stormtroopers that can't hit anything. These guys are so well prepared. They have maps based on aerial photographs of where British artillery is supposed to be, headquarters, communications, centers, things like that, observation points, key targets. They don't go into the trenches. Their big idea is to go around the trenches and hit targets behind the trenches. And to get to these maps, get to these areas, they have maps drawn out, but not drawn on paper, drawn on canvas that are then sewn into the sleeves of their uniforms. So as they're walking around with these MP-18s, they have a 1918 heads-up display ready to go. They always know exactly where they are. They're incredibly well prepared. These are the big, German guy with the big steel helmet and the gas mask and the goggles. This is that big 1918 nightmare that you see, because this war really could have turned 1918, and obviously it didn't.
Yeah, cool. Well, James, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in. It's a pleasure to hear about the new article series you're working on. Nice to hear that you've got some collaborators coming on board with you now.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And, it's always nice to have John just segue once in a while, just to derail everything.
Well, me and James, we could talk for hours.
Trust me, I would love
what we got to do is we got to do more of those live streams. I mean, those live streams, there's no real time limit, and the whole point is to have a more spontaneous conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well, everybody, thank you very much, and we will get back to the show.
Hi guys, I'm Mel the Train Tutor, and you're watching The Weekender on beastsofwar.com.
Okay, so that's what James is getting up to for his article series. It's going to be exciting to see just how each component and each part of it plays together.
Yes. What I'm specifically looking forward to about this article series is his suggestions on how to play World War I. So that, he says, one of the prime examples that I love is, trench warfare existed, but you don't need to play out that version of trench warfare. You play out the part where one side has now entered the trenches, and that's a very different kind of game.
Well, you do something like
really interesting.
What was it, Tobruk?
Yeah.
You know, there are a few engagements there where there were big pushes on both sides. Playing that out would be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing where this series goes.
Yeah.
Ben, it's Kickstarter time. What have we got going on at the moment?
So the first one is one that we talked about with James M. Hewitt during the middle of the week, and this is Hellboy, the board game from Mantic Games, and obviously, as we said there, James Hewitt, who's from Needy Cat Games. This is their take on the world of Hellboy from the comics and the graphic novels and all that kind of thing, where you play as Hellboy and his team of investigators from the BPRD as you go out and solve mysteries on the tabletop. This game works for 1 to 4 players, so there's a solo element to it there if you want to get stuck in on that kind of thing. But then there are some awesome stuff involved in all the gameplay aspects of this. Now, one of the cool things for me is that when this game sets up, you open a little tiny packet, and inside come all the cards for that scenario, so you don't even know what you're going to be facing as you set things up on the tabletop, which is really cool. It's got a kind of awesome legacy style feel to it in that kind of gameplay. As you go through each of the different rooms, you'll uncover them and uncover cards which will talk about the monster behaviors, as well as where the monsters are in the room. And of course, there's the Doom deck as well. This is a deck of cards that flips over and tells you what's happening as the Doom track reaches up towards its finale. So this is going to unveil sort of special rules that may affect you for a certain amount of time. For example, in the little demo game they played, there were 2 interesting cards. One of them affected Abe Sapien and meant that he was very familiar with the frog people, and he was kind of afraid to fight them for a little bit. The other one was for Hellboy, who took some penalties if he didn't start fighting, het up and angry. Player actions are very, very simple. They're all driven by cubes. What you do is you spend cubes to fulfill certain actions on your player board. Some special actions will maybe take 2 cubes. Moving around maybe takes 1. And you move around in a very sort of open-styled grid system on the map, which is very inviting for sort of back and forth gameplay and sort of adding to that cinematic nature of things. The other cool thing about the way that players interact in the game is that it's all done on a sort of loose cooperative basis. So, for example, one of your characters like Abe could do something, and then in between his move and the next move that he does, Hellboy could do something else. So, for example, Abe could get out of the way and throw a grenade, or Hellboy could rush in and punch something, pushing it into another square where then another one of the characters could then set them on fire, for example, or things like that. So it's got a very dynamic aspect to things in that regard, where you can kind of play together and work as a nice unit rather than sort of as individuals, which is kind of appropriate for what you're seeing with Hellboy and the BPRD and stuff. Yeah, the game's looking amazing so far in terms of the Kickstarter. They've got one sort of core pledge for this at the moment, where you can go and pick up the core game as well as 2 big expansions. So I think the 2 expansions are the Conqueror Worm expansion and the BPRD Archives expansion. Game comes with some really awesome little plastic figures, and you also get loads and loads of figures for the enemies as well. We've seen a couple of these obviously painted up by Angel Heraldez and other people, like Lance has even painted up a version of Hellboy as well. And even the quality during the prototype staging is looking very, very good indeed. So hopefully this is a game that's going to be on the same level of awesomeness as Walking Dead, which was a firm favourite of ours.
Absolutely. It's looking great, and I think the minis just look fabulous.
I am
currently 5 times funded.
Brilliant.
I am so hyped for this game. I've been hovering with my finger on the pledge button since the Kickstarter came up, and I'm very excited to see Professor Broom turn up in the stretch goals, because he is my favourite of the characters.
Cool.
So I'm glad he's getting included there.
For me, it's Abe Sapien, my favourite character.
For me, it is Hellboy himself. I just think
we called it.
We called it.
Yeah, when we were sitting talking with James, myself, and Sam, we were actually trying to assign which character would go with which person from the office. So you were Hellboy, I was Abe Sapien. You
Johann
were
Kraus.
Yeah, and who was the other one?
I can't remember. It was Liz.
Yeah, I think we said that was John.
John
kind of got Paramania going on.
I can imagine. So Hellboy has about 27 days left to run.
Yeah,
it's still so early. There's going to be so many stretch goals unlocked on that.
It's a very, very tempting one.
Next up, we have a game by Alter Ego Games. Ben.
Yeah, so this is called the Faceless, and if you're interested in the likes of Stranger Things and those kind of games in that
Which I
era
am.
and that genre, then this is the kind of game that you might want to get stuck into. This is another cooperative adventure game where you play as kids who are going to try and find Ethan, who has got lost in what's called the Dusk World. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this game takes things beyond what you'd normally see in terms of game mechanics and components, and actually includes some awesome magnets. So yeah, you have this little tiny compass that's set up in the board, and all the things you do influence the movement of this compass around the table. And so as you're moving characters from one side to the other, this compass is going to slide around and move within the dimensions of the sort of like central area that you see there. And this means that you'll be using this and guiding it around and trying to avoid monsters and things like that. This is really interesting card-based play. There's a sort of an aspect of planning and working together to try and sort of anticipate where things are going to end up moving, and this means that the cooperative element for this is very, very strong. So you're playing this, trying to work together to see if you can chain moves together as you're going through. There are some crazy looking miniatures for this game as well that have been done by the guys at Alter Ego Games. So you've got the likes of what's called the Billy Goat, which is the horrible sort of demon creature that is stalking around the Dusk World, and then there's also his minions as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting cooperative game for you to check out, and it involves magnets and does some cool things with game mechanics and components. So if you want to see something that's a little bit different, then this is one that you might want to go and check out. So.
Absolutely.
So
Very
cool.
Really interested to see what it does with the magnets, actually,
Yeah.
to see how that actually works when you're playing it out. Right, that about wraps it up. Okay, competitions wise, as I had mentioned at the start, the guys from Darker Days Radio are going to be releasing a new podcast very soon. If you want to be in with a chance of winning that LARP ticket, keep an eye out. We'll post a link in the show notes below to where the podcast is, and the details will be in that podcast. We are giving away a Beyond the Gates of Antares, a Sarin Torga Mark 7.
Yes.
You see?
He's doing it.
We have a question for you, okay? So to win, you have to tell us, what do you think the future of armored warfare is? For example, new tanks, will they be manned or unmanned? And will ground forces become obsolete? So let's have a discussion about the future of warfare. We'll talk about that more next week whenever we get their input. And then finally, we have a winner to announce. So the winner of the Bolt Action German Winter Infantry was Cheese Friend. His favourite World War II movie would have to have been A Bridge Too Far because of the Polish Airborne. Good choice. Good choice.
There were a lot of good choices in those comments.
Okay, guys, look, thank you so much. Come across to beastsofwar.com tomorrow morning for our backstagers. We have an XLBS. We're going to be talking about the 4 tabletop games that have influenced you the most. So we've got an interesting one for you. So come across, join backstage, support the project, and get some extra content while you're at it. Big thanks to Ben, Justin, Sam, and most of all, a big thanks to you guys. Have a great week of gaming. We'll see you again soon. Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and be sure to check out beastsofwar.com for the latest gaming news and gaming Let's Plays. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe, and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.